Strategic Living with Brian Holmes, episode number 1. Well, welcome everyone today to the very first ever episode of the Strategic Living Podcast. My name is Brian Holmes, and it is just a joy to have you join us on this, our maiden voyage into the podcasting world. You say, what is strategic living about? Well, it's all about transforming minds, developing leaders, and changing nations, activating destinies. You see, we want to see you healed, your belief systems renewed and transformed, and I want you to discover all that God really has created you to be and to do. That's what we're here to do. Welcome. We're excited to have you with us today. Well, once again, this is Brian Holmes, and it's just a joy. I'm so excited. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but it has taken me almost a year to get to this moment. About a year and a half ago, I began really looking at how can we get the message of transforming minds, developing leaders, healing hearts, and having individuals really transformed and developed into their full potential. How can we get that message out to the masses? And I came across some great names in the leadership community, and one of those is Dan Miller, and got to meet him, and he in turn referred me to Michael Hyatt to Cliff Ravenscraft, and before you know it, I'm looking at, man, this podcasting thing could be a phenomenal way for us to really communicate a message of healing, a message of hope, a message of potential and destinies and missions being really realized. And so here we are, man. I'm just really excited. I hope you are as well. And just thank you for being a part of this very first episode. On this particular episode, I'm going to take a little bit of time just to introduce myself to you. And that's not normally going to be what we do. But I do want you to know who I am and a little bit about my story. And there are quite a few, I'm sure, that are listening today that know some of my background, have heard me speak, and know about some of the work that we do. But I'm sure there are others that are listening that have not had any exposure at all to our message, to our heart, and to what we really believe God's given us to do. So we're going to be talking about some of that. I'm also going to be introducing the program. I want to give you a kind of a bird's eye view from 30,000 feet and let you kind of see what we have in mind, what our vision is, what our heart is, how we want to accomplish getting this message out, building a community of hope and change and transformation and leadership development and all these types of things. And we are just so excited for you to be a part of it. So I hope that gives you a bit of a vibe on where we're going. So let's just jump right in today and see where this takes us. Well, first of all, I want to say again, this program is not going to be about me. And by that I mean the Strategic Living Podcast is not going to focus on Brian Holmes, his family, and his accomplishments and those types of things by any means. But I do feel like it's important that you know who I am because I want you to trust me. I want you to trust my heart. And as you hear some of what we're going to share today, I think that will be clear to you that our heart is to do nothing more, nothing less than to come alongside of you and just encourage you, share principles with you, maybe along the way, introduce you to other leaders that God has so gracefully allowed us to come across, and just to help you to become that full man, that full woman, that full potential. And I hope you can trust my heart today. But let me just give you a bit of a background about myself. I have been married to my wife, Sabrina, for 24 years. I remember many years ago, Zig Ziglar, and if you don't know who he is, you would do yourself a great service to look up Zig Ziglar and even download a lot of the materials that he has online. But Zig Ziglar used to refer to his wife as the redhead, and Sabrina is my redhead. I'll never forget the day in Mesquite, Texas, as I was on the platform of a church ministry setting, and I was playing the drums because I am a musician. And I saw from the back of the room, I saw this unbelievably beautiful redheaded lady walk in the door, and I turned to my bass playing buddy and I said, man, who is that girl? And it just so happened that he knew her, and later that evening introduced us, and within a matter of just a short space of time, we were engaged to be married. So 1989, I married Sabrina, and we are so blessed to have two wonderful children, Christian and Abigail. My son just graduated from high school and will be headed off to college. And yes, I do mean off to college, as in out of town off to college. So we are going through a bit of a grieving and transitional process, just watching him grow up into a fine young man. Matter of fact, not too long ago, I posted some things about my son and our journey with him on our website at brianholmes.com/Christian. And I'd love for you to go take a look at that. Just sort of a heartfelt letter that I wrote to my son, celebrating his life, celebrating his accomplishments to this point, and expressing my belief in his potential and where God is taking him in his life. But my daughter Abigail is about to turn 15. Matter of fact, at the release of this podcast, she will be 15 years old, or right at it, I think within a day or two. So I've just got two teenagers, man, one going off to college and one with a few more years of high school. So if that doesn't give you a reason to pray for me, I hope that you will anyway. But they are a joy, and we are so proud of both of them. I am an author. I'm a speaker. I have been in pastoral ministry for over 20 years collectively, and I do a lot of work with leaders, personal development, dealing with individuals in the coaching world, those types of things. I also have had the wonderful privilege of coming alongside a number of businesses, entrepreneurs, and CEOs and executives over the last number of years, and really working with them as a strategist and a consultant, and I really enjoy that field. I guess overall, I would say about who I am, I just am a person who wants to see every man, every woman, every boy, and every girl realize their maximum potential, that which God intended for them to accomplish and do and to become. It's really what we're about. So I've been working with people, and that is what I refer to lovingly as the people business, since I was 16 years old, and been around the ministry context since I was around 19. Had the great privilege for the last 10 years of pastoring a church in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, some of the most wonderful people that I have ever known in my life, that we have shared so many incredible experiences with. And just a shout out to all of our covenant family, and just to say that thank you for allowing me to pursue all of the things that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing in my life as well. One of the great highlights of what I've been able to do in my life is travel. And I have found that most Americans, and I know this podcast is going all over the world, but I'm going to put this out there, and you'll forgive me, but most people who live in the Western world think that the entire world is basically Americanized. And that is so far from the truth. I've had the privilege of traveling to 18 countries in the last 17 years, teaching leaders, getting to know individuals and people on the ground floor and in the grassroots of great works, be it ministry or businesses or the political arenas. And I am just overwhelmed when I take into account all that is happening around the world. And for those of us who are privileged to live in these great United States of America, I would say to all of us that we are blessed, we are privileged, we have so many things to be thankful for. And I would just like to remind you that it's really a good thing to stop every now and then and be thankful, and also a good thing to reach out and be a blessing to those who are less fortunate than we are. But in traveling to those 18 countries, we've been sharing a message of healing and activating and fulfillment all over the world, and it's just been a wonderful experience. So that's a little bit about who I am, but let me tell you a little bit about my story. I was born and raised in a Christian home, and my mother and my father both had accepted Christ. I know my father at a very early age, my mother a little bit later in life, but certainly before I was born. And all I really have ever known is a church or religious culture. And by that I simply mean from a very early age, pretty much every time a church door was open, we were gravitating toward that facility, and everything that we really did in our life as far as community revolved around the relationships in the local church setting. And I knew at a very early age that God had something unique designed for me. There was something special He had called me to. Of course, at a young age, you really can't grasp or wrap your mind around what that might be, but just this sense of there's something that I'm supposed to accomplish, something I'm supposed to contribute in this lifetime. And as is the case with so many people, at a very young age, I experienced a very deep tragedy. In my case, I was 11 years old, and at 11 years old, experienced an abuse of sorts, a very serious offense that took place in my life. And that particular offense had to do with sexual exposure, reminding you that this is 11 years old. And, you know, an 11-year-old mind does not have the capacity to process that level of trauma. And I don't want to take the time in this particular episode to really deal with this, but I would say that in all of my travels, I dare say that 50 to 60% of people that I meet at some point between the ages of 8 years old and 12 or 13 years old, they experience some form of tragedy, be it abuse emotionally, spiritually, sexually, physically. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one. Maybe it's the divorce of a child's parents. Maybe it's abandonment or rejection. But it seems to me that in that early stage of life, that's where the enemy of our soul tries to derail and to affect the trajectory of our lives. And that instance that took place in my life, of course, caused so many things to unravel because as I began to carry the guilt and the shame and the confusion of that event, I began to explore and begin to go down paths that were very destructive. I grew up as a very angry young man, and even though I had a great home and great friends and a great environment, lived a fairly sheltered life, the fact was that the trauma emotionally in the soulish arena of this event was really tearing me up from the inside out. Of course, you know, none of that got fixed as a kid. And so, as you might imagine, I brought all of the brokenness, all of the misplaced anger, all of the challenges of those events and the years that came after that. I brought all of that into my marriage relationship. And that was very difficult and caused a tremendous, tremendous challenge for my wife and I in the early years. During that same period of time, I've been working in ministry, of course, but I was very miserable and hurting. I would be on the platform of a church or somewhere traveling and see phenomenal things taking place in the lives of individuals and feel a sense that God was working with me and through me. And yet, as I would walk off that platform, the shame, the guilt, the condemnation, the pain, the anger, all of those things just came crashing in on me again. And so it was just this unbelievable contrast. It was this internal conflict that was very, very difficult. As I mentioned before, those first 11 years of our marriage between 89 and really 1999, just very difficult years. During that same period of time, our first child was born. Matter of fact, in 1998, Abigail was born. And so all of that began coming to a head around 1997, 98. And things were not good at home. My own life was kind of a wreck. I was miserable. I was really in a bad place. 1999, March the 1st, my father passed away very suddenly, very unexpectedly, at a very young age, 64 years old. And that really, for me, was a tipping point. In other words, in that moment of my life, all of the other stresses, all the other pressure, all the other trauma and pain that I was dealing with, it was almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. And for me, at that moment, I began spiraling emotionally and spiritually and in every other way. So much so that in April of 2000, well, let me just back up. In 1999, over the course of the remainder of that year, I reached a very critical place on several occasions, ladies and gentlemen. I felt as though I just would be better off checking out, but I could not bring myself to even go down that road just because I loved my kids. I really did love my wife. But, you know, just the thought that there's so much that I know God has for me, there's got to be some way that we can make it through this and get on the other side of this. In 2000, I'd come to the end of my road. And thankfully, some friends of ours introduced us to a program here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that I had never heard of before. And frankly, my religious mindset, as funny as this may seem given my condition, My religious mindset really wasn't even open to receiving this kind of advice or counsel. But they introduced us to a program called Pathways Life Management. And I'm going to put a link in our show notes to Pathways because I still very much believe in the work that they're doing. And this was a program where you go in maybe on a Friday night for the first weekend, and you're there Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and you begin to just kind of walk through your life and unpack some things. And I call it like walking down the path of your life, the timeline of your life, and turning over every rock. And at the place where that rock gets turned over, if you find something that's painful or difficult or that needs to be resolved, you deal with it while you're there. And that particular program gave us the impetus to do just that. The first weekend was very difficult for me because for the first time in my life, I brought out of darkness, if you will, I brought into the light that, yeah, man, at 11 years old, I was abused. And as I spoke the words out of my mouth for the very first time to a total stranger, mind you, it was almost like a dam had burst and just all of the waters of the Atlantic Ocean came piling through because it was just overwhelming to the point where I wound up literally in the floor in like a fetal position, just weeping and crying, just because all of this pent-up emotion and pain that I'd never really addressed, never wanted to look at, began just coming out in such a powerful way. But over the course of the next 10 days to really 2 to 3 months, as we walked through each phase of that program, God did an amazing work in my life. And through that process, not only was my life saved, but I believe my destiny and my future was redeemed and really, really saved and salvaged, if you will. Matter of fact, our marriage was not only restored, but it was frankly put back together in a way that we had never had it from the very beginning. And it was just a beautiful season for us. And honestly, I've never felt more grace in my life, tangible grace in my life, than during that particular season. So Pathways did something for us that redirected our lives, and it gave us a new foundation from which to begin building not only our lives, but our ministry, our calling, our destiny, our work, our vocation, that which we would now take forward from that experience and begin to help others with. One of the things that came out of that frankly is fundamentally the basis of everything that I do, is that it dawned on me that all of my religious experience, all of my church experience, all of the teaching that I had received for the many years that I'd been involved in church had not allowed me the understanding that the soul of man is that part of man that most times is broken. And it's the soul of man where the emotions, the mind, the will, the memories, the hurts, the traumas, the belief systems, all of those things, it's in that arena called the soul where those things are held. And it just dawned on me that the church was not really dealing with that part of mankind at all. As a matter of fact, and I say this not as a criticism, but just as a place of being aware that so many are saved and they come to the saving knowledge of a relationship with Jesus Christ. But from that place, the broken places don't automatically get fixed. And so as I've traveled all over the globe and I've ministered in and I've spoken in so many different types of venues and in so many different arenas and camps, I look out across the crowd of people and they if they're believers, of course, they love God, they believe in doing right. But I look into their eyes and I see that there is so much brokenness there. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know what Brian Holmes is all about, it is about helping individuals to deal with not only the spirit of man and not only the physical part of, fitness and health, but I really want to go after the soul. I want to help individuals to reconcile and to deal with and to resolve and to get healed and to reform and transform belief systems and to replace erroneous limiting beliefs with strong faith-filled and potential-filled beliefs so that the thing that God has uniquely crafted and created a person to do, they can really accomplish that. So at the end of the day, I guess I would say that our mission with this podcast and also with all the other things that we do around our particular work is to heal, to transform, to help individuals to be developed into their full potential. And if we can be some small part in releasing them to go into their world and accomplish and do and be successful and be fulfilled, that's what we're about. And so I hope that gives you a bit of a background. I trust that me telling a little bit about my story is not in any way mundane to you, but I really hope that it touches your heart and lets you know that you're talking to a guy here that's been through a lot, and I've seen a lot. And I have worked with literally hundreds of people over the last 20 years and walked through some very difficult places. But this is not just about getting healed. It's about being developed. It's about being trained. It's about being equipped. It's about being activated. It's about getting excited about life again. It's about finding your purpose and finding your passion and being fully engaged in the one thing that really, really matters to you. And we want to help you to do just that. Well, let me kind of wrap this segment up in this podcast to give you a little bit of a backdrop on some of the work that we've done. I've written a number of books and curriculums. We've done one that's gone around the world called The Ties That Bind. This is a book and a study guide and a DVD curriculum and various things that we have. This is not an advertisement, by the way, just a little bit about what we've put out there, about how to identify and break off and break free from limiting ungodly and unhealthy soul ties, connections to other people, to other scenarios, other events in your life. We deal with strategic living, which of course is the name of this podcast. And in that particular course of studies, there's 8 different courses that we have developed. And we deal with understanding your identity, really determining who you are. I find that most people live their entire life trying to be what other people expect them to be, and they never really become who they really are. And therefore, they never really succeed at anything because they're always trying to live up to someone else's expectations. So the course on identity really deals with that. We deal so much, of course, with the soul, with the mind. Hey, if you're a believer, and I'm unabashedly a Christian, I'll tell you straight up that so much of the philosophy that I hold comes from biblical worldview. But the mind, what you believe, is spoken about more in the sacred scriptures than money or marriage or anything else. And it really is important what you believe, because what you believe is what you move toward. And so we do a lot of work in that arena as well. We do a lot of work in the arena of helping individuals to craft and to identify a vision for their life, strategic planning, which is goal setting, master planning, these types of things, and just so much more. So it kind of gives you an idea of where we're going in this particular podcast. So what about the podcast? What are we trying to accomplish here? Well, it's long been my desire to begin to connect with a tribe of people that really feel as though, you know what, there is more to life than what I am living. I want to really begin to create an atmosphere and an environment and a place where people of like mind can gather and say, how can we sharpen each other? How can we help each other? How can we learn from each other and become more of what we are supposed to be and really deal with some of the issues that are limiting our forward-moving progress? So really this community, this tribe is a group of people that we are wanting to begin to gather around us that we can engage with concerning their life, their destiny, their purpose. Look, I haven't met a person. Well, I can't say that. I've probably met a few. But I haven't met too many people that don't have a firm, solid desire to succeed. And if you were to ask them, hey, would you like to fulfill your purpose? They would say yes. But the truth is, most people struggle really with knowing who they really are. They haven't really grasped a process or a path to walk out to really help them to identify who they are, why they're here, what are they passionate about, what are their talents, skills, abilities, all these things. How can I begin to frame and be intentional about my life? And we want to reach out to whoever might be interested in talking about that. And we want to just engage with them. I have also found that there are many, many, many people that grapple with pain and hurt from their past. I know that I'm not the only one. I know that there are thousands upon thousands of people out there that are dealing with guilt, with shame, with hurts, with rejection, abandonment issues, limiting beliefs, really screwed up philosophies because of sometimes religious teaching, sometimes untruth that has been passed down from generation to generation, whatever the case may be. But there are people out there that want to succeed but need just a group of support around them to help them to do that. And these people long to be free. They really want to become what God intended. But most, I have found, don't really know where to begin. So that is what the Strategic Living Podcast is all about. It is as simple as that. Anyone who desires to be better, to be stronger, to move forward, to unwrap and to put off limitations of the past seasons, to be developed as a leader, developed personally, to be challenged in their own personal disciplines. Anyone who really wants to get a grasp on how can I really become strategic and intentional about my life and moving forward, that's who this podcast is for. So you say, Brian, what's in this for you? Well, let me just to be honest with you right now. I just simply want to come into your world. I want to come alongside of you, and we're going to provide you with information. I trust we'll provide you with a whole lot of inspiration. Along the way, we're going to be sharing with you tools and strategies that we have found to be very effective in the areas of not only personal transformation, but leadership development and ultimately you becoming very active and engaged with your God-given purpose and DNA. So really, my desire is just to make a contribution in your life. Nothing more, nothing less. I want to come alongside and be one of the voices that makes a difference in your journey. You see, we can't do this alone. And I'll be straight with you. I'll tell you flat out, I have several men and women in my life that I listen to, that I tap into their genius, into their experience. There are people that are further down the road than I am, and I look to them for their example, for their counsel, for their input. And there are many people that are not where I am yet, and I want to reciprocate by looking back and saying, come on, let me help you get to where you're trying to go. That's what the Strategic Living Podcast is intended to do. So let me just tell you what I know to be true. There is something very powerful and very real that God intends for you to be. There is something extremely significant that, if you ask me, only you can do. And whatever's holding you back, whatever discoveries that you personally need to make, maybe whatever healing needs to take place in your own life, in your own heart, for you to move in the direction that you really need to go, I want to tell you this podcast is a resource that I believe with all of my heart will help you in that process. The Strategic Living Podcast is going to have a number of elements to it. And quite frankly, I don't want to even limit it to what we might do, but let me give you a few ideas. It's going to feature not only powerful content, but it's also going to serve as a real means of connecting our audience with other leaders. Leaders that have expertise and experience in the areas of healing, personal transformation, leadership development, entrepreneurial pursuits, success motivation, whatever the case may be. We want to also be a hub where you can connect with other people. And I just believe that the folks we're going to be introducing you to along the way are going to be just as instrumental in your life as we will be. And I just know that from the bottom of my heart because these same people have been so key in my own life. So it's my goal that this program kind of be one-stop shopping for you. It's my goal that this program be your go-to resource for personal transformation and personal development. Our desire, again, is to build a community of individuals who are dedicated to becoming all God's intended them to be and who are willing to help others do the same. There's a great quote in the book of Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 17. It says this. It says, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And I believe this community of people that are coming together right now are going to do just exactly that. We're going to sharpen. We're going to be there for each other. We're going to be able to connect through all kinds of outlets, social media included. And I just am looking forward to experiencing this with you. So here are a few things you can look forward to. Teaching segments. We're going to have interviews with great leaders and experts in the field of strategic living. Right now at brianholmes.com, there is a little mechanism over on the right-hand side of your screen where you can begin leaving questions for us. And no doubt we'll have numerous questions coming in every single week. And as we are able to do so, and probably as it fits the content of each particular podcast episode, we want to do our very best to answer and address your questions on the podcast so others can benefit from that conversation. For our listeners, our subscribed listeners, we're going to be offering you free tools and resources from time to time. These may come in the form of an email that you receive or maybe a free download from our website. But just know that we're going to be trying our very best to add value to you on an ongoing basis. We're going to have webinars. We'll be offering other learning and growth opportunities. And man, the list just goes on and on and on. I hope by now you can see why I've been so excited. I am just pumped to get to this place. I am so pumped to get right here. So how can you join the conversation? How can you be a part of this journey with us? Well, first of all, let me tell you, I'm going to ask you right now, stop what you're doing, get on my website, brianholmes.com, brianholmes.com, and subscribe right there on the top right-hand side to our weekly updates. Subscribe to the podcast. How do you do that? Well, you subscribe to the podcast via iTunes or whatever RSS feed you subscribe to. But if you're going to go to iTunes, be sure to rate us there, rate the podcast. That helps us get greater visibility, but also it really helps us to connect with you on a greater level. Here's another way you can help us. Share this with your friends. Look, this is a brand new show. This is a brand new podcast that we're putting out there, and I'm asking you to share the link to this podcast episode with all of your friends on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Mama Graham, Daddy Graham, every kind of Graham. Let's just get the word out that there is something online right now that's meaningful, that will add value, that will help every individual become all that God has called them to be. And of course, we invite you to leave your comments and begin to dialogue with us and others that are listening to the podcast right here on the brianholmes.com website as well. And you're going to be a great, great asset to the relationships that you develop right there. So right now, go do these things. Subscribe to our updates, subscribe to the podcast, share this link with your friends, with your associates, and begin having a dialogue with us at brianholmes.com. It's going to be an awesome, awesome time. Well, 2 or 3 very quick announcements that I'd like to share with you, and then we're going to get out of your way for today. But if you would like to have me speak at your church, your conference, or any event, a leadership event, personal development event, please visit my speaking page at brianholmes.com/speaking for information on how we can connect and we can come to your city, to your venue, to your event, and be a blessing to you there. Also, I'd like to tell you, and this is way in advance, but coming in just a few months, we're going to be launching the Ties That Bind, which is our flagship curriculum, online as an online course where you won't have to go to a location to take it. You won't have to necessarily order the product from us and have it delivered to your home. You will be able to have an access as a member to the Ties That Bind online community and come on and take each of the sessions with me teaching the sessions, you doing the work, the PDF downloads of all the materials. And I'm so pumped about that particular thing that we're putting out there in just a couple of months. So be watching for that. Also, you may not be aware, but I'm a master coach trainer, and we will be thrilled to have you come along and become a certified professional coach, a life coach, a business coach, an executive coach, a fitness coach, whatever niche or genre you feel like maybe you would be most suited for. We can provide you the training necessary to be credentialed as a certified professional coach. For more information about that, visit our website at brianholmes.com as well. Well, that just about wraps it up for this very first episode of Strategic Living. And I would like for you to comment on this episode. Go to brianholmes.com right now. Go to the show notes for this episode. Scroll down to the comments section, and we would love to hear from you, whether you want to leave a comment on the show notes page there, if you want to voicemail us a question from the website, whatever that case might be. We'd love to hear from you. Also, I would be so grateful if you would help us by rating the podcast on iTunes. That helps us tremendously in making the podcast more visible. And we want to do that because in these early weeks, we want to get the word out on a large scale so that people that have never heard about us can discover what we're doing right here at Strategic Living. I'm very grateful for your help on that. Just know this, ladies and gentlemen, God has something very special for your life. And I trust that something we've shared today has challenged you to pursue everything that God has for you. There is no such place as hopeless. There is hope to be healed from the past. There's hope to have your mind transformed, your heart renewed. And I believe with all of my heart that every man and every woman that God has ever created, He has great plans for them. And He intends to see those plans fulfilled. Until next time, remember this. You are made in His image, designed for a purpose, and you are destined for extreme greatness. You know what? The world's just waiting for you to show up, waiting for you to be the man, the woman, the young man, the young lady that God has created you to be. I'm telling you right now, this is a great time to be alive. Don't be discouraged. Don't be downhearted. Don't listen to all the naysayers. Just know this. God has a plan for your life. And if you can believe, you really can achieve. Until next time, my name is Brian Holmes. It's a delight to have you with us. We look forward to seeing you next week.